Or okay, so I'm going to ask you a question. Choice or doing things by force, is there something in common over here, or it's total opposites? Doing things by choice or doing things by force?
Both.
There's something in common,
Yeah.
or it's total opposites? Doing things by choice or doing things by force?
That's very common. It's external influences.
Yeah, very interesting
Yeah,
that you're saying that.
It's
Okay,
external, but it could become, sometimes, like, let's
It's
say
influence, and you
a
have to
child
decide
doesn't want to
what
take the
influence you take.
so we'll
pacifier.
see that sometimes you can get influenced and then it
Yeah.
becomes your choice.
Like the
So we're gonna see
pacifier,
this,
for
it's very interesting. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna think is that, of course, if you have free choice, you're a free person, you can do whatever you want. But if you're being forced, it's not your choice and somebody else is telling you. But it's very interesting that there's a halacha about a husband giving a get to a wife, that we're gonna
told
see
you.
something very, very interesting.
Told you.
It says that the rule, the halacha says that the husband has to give it from his will, like he has to be willing, and it has to be coming from his will. At the same time, it says that if a husband doesn't want to give a get to his wife, we can put pressure on him and force him to do it. There's different ways. The rabbis,
The keilah.
yeah, the community, the rabbis, there's ways of like pushing.
Sometimes they don't want to give.
Sometimes it's hard, but there is this concept of trying to push the husband to
I
do
heard
it.
somebody did. They sent the mother-in-law to talk to the girl, and she just give her a paper like this. And she said,
The mother-in-law gave it, usually the husband has to give it in person.
I think it
The
has to
husband.
do also.
Anyways, listen to how
Listen,
interesting
listen,
this is.
listen.
Okay. The question is, how does this halacha work together? If one is that it has to come from his free will, like from his will, and on the other hand, you are allowed to apply pressure. Like if you're applying pressure, then it's not from his free will, and then the get is not valid. So the halacha says, listen, the idea is that you're convincing him and pushing him to agree till the point that it becomes his will.
Yeah.
So that's what halacha says, that's how it works, to the point that he says, that's what I want. Now, how does this solution really resolve this? Like, it still feels like it's by force. So it's very, very interesting. I'm not going to go into all the details, but it says that, like, the Rambam explains this concept, and he says that this is the one place that you see that the halacha works with the person's unconsciousness. It says really deep inside, deep inside, even in the unconscious level, the person wants to do what Hashem wants. And because he wants to do what Hashem wants, he wants to give a get. But on the outside, his behavior, his ego is going to make him not want to give it. So you're going to do it from externally. That's exactly where you were going earlier. Externally, you're going to apply pressure, and then he will reveal the internal unconscious part of him that wants to do it. And that's why halachically it works, that you can force the person and then it becomes his free will, because really the free will was his will. Okay. And what we see here is that what he's saying is that the only way to actually, when a person doesn't want to do something out of ego, out of his like personality, etc., he doesn't want to do it, the only way to do it, you somehow have to break through him. You have to like force him. You have to apply a certain pressure. And the only way that this will happen to this man to give the get will be through a breakthrough. And so in this whole chapter is talking all about crushing the person, like crushing ourselves in order to fix ourselves, in order to be in a better place, because we have this blockage of the neshama that's not lighting up the body, and there's some blockage over there, and the only way to deal with it is by doing a huge breakthrough. So today we're going to finish this chapter 29 about this topic of this breaking, and we're going to see how breaking is actually an amazing solution to bring the person to a better place and to help him fix his problems and to help him like really get back to himself. And we're going to see we're going to take the Alter Rebbe, and this chapter is going to bring the example of the story of the spies that went to Israel. We'll talk about it later in details. And from that, we're going to learn how to deal with when we have doubts, like how to reveal the faith that the person has. Sometimes a person has doubts and he doesn't believe perfectly, and he's like starting to question things of Torah and of God. And we're going to learn how to deal with those doubts that can come up. Okay, so what we're learning so far in this chapter is that we have like this premise that when we break a person, when we do this breakthrough, okay, that can help the person's neshama to light up and to express itself in the person and to so in order to understand what's going on between like there's a huge struggle between the holiness and the klipa, whatever's the holy. There's a huge struggle, a huge fight between them. And in order to understand and which is not just a fight between the holiness and the non-holiness, but it's also between the truth and the lies, between the real world and the fake world that we live in, and between believing in the true Hashem and believing in everything else, or not believing in Hashem. Okay, so let's try and understand what is going on over there in this fight between the holiness and the non-holiness and the klipa. So to understand that, we're going to go into the simple one. What's the huge fight between, or the huge struggle that's between light and darkness? What's happening between light and darkness? Which one is going to be stronger? Which one is always going to win?
Supposed to lie.
The light is much stronger. As soon as you bring light, the darkness is gone. Okay. Another point that's very important to realize is that light is bringing an existence of something. The absence of light, when there's nothing, that's darkness. So darkness doesn't have any substance. Darkness is just emptiness. It's nothing. Light is an existence. Light is like it's a fire. It's something that you bring to the picture, and the light instantly gets rid of the darkness, right? Now we can understand the same way that it works with the light and darkness. We're going to see how it works with truth and lies. So generally, of course, truth is much stronger than a lie, right? A lie is just an imagination. It's not the reality. Truth is the reality. Truth is existing forever and ever. Okay, we say that a lie doesn't have feet, like it's not, but truth is is a true existence. Okay, and that's why truth should always win over the.
They say everybody has his own truth.
Okay, but we're talking
I
about the
agree.
truth of Hashem, like real truth. Okay. Actually, I don't know if you know, we mentioned it in one of the previous classes when we talked about the light and everything. Netanyahu was by the Rebbe, and the Rebbe told him whatever. He managed to speak to the Rebbe in the middle of all the hakafot, like in the middle of all the Torah dancing in 770, and he spoke to the Rebbe in the middle like of 770, in the middle of everybody, not like in a private audience, but in the middle of everybody. And the Rebbe told him in front of a lot of people that were waiting for him. He spoke to him, and he spoke to him for like 40 minutes. I mean, there he told him, a place wherever you are, okay, like in the UN, wherever you are, you should know that there's constant lies, and your job is to open. Yeah. Hello, you're there?
Hi, I'm so sorry we're there. Are you able, feel bad we can't go later? Are you able to open it now?
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, it's the library. Sorry. Okay. And anyways, what did the Rebbe told him? You're going to be in a place, the UN is a place full of lies. Your job is to light a little fire of truth. And that little fire of truth, like that little candle of truth, is going to send away the whole darkness. Like all you have to do is bring a little bit of truth, and the lies will go away. And many years later, actually, Netanyahu said it in the UN, sent it in front of everybody, and he had the strength, the courage to say it in front of everybody, and all the leaders of the world, and whatever, in the UN saw that this was the truth, and the truth lights. Okay, so just the idea of truth is literally like light over darkness. Like you can really chase a lot of darkness with the truth. And now they understood the idea of like light and dark, and truth and lies. We're going to go into faith against like rebellions, okay? People that don't believe in anything, okay? So believing in Hashem's unity, that's truth. That's like real truth, okay? The fact the fact that we think that the world is an existence of its own, that's a lie. Hashem is everything and Hashem made the world. But to say Hashem is just like a side thing in the world, there's Mother Nature and the world exists on its own, that's a lie. Okay, the real truth is that Hashem is the one making the world exist every single moment. Okay, and there's Hashgacha Pratit, every single tiny thing in the world is led by Hashem. That's the truth. Okay, so therefore, truth and this faith in Hashem should really win always, just like the light always wins darkness, and just like the truth always wins the lies. The truth that Hashem is everything and Hashem always is there should be winning. But in actuality, what do we see? In actuality, is the truth of Hashem always winning? If you look around, everybody, it's totally covered, it's totally non-existent. It feels like a lie compared to the way the world exists and to the way everybody sees the world. Okay, like you're not seeing that as soon as the truth pops, the lies are gone. Not like that's not what we see. Okay, we don't see that every time there's holiness, suddenly the klipa is gone. That's not what we see in reality. What we see is that as much as we see, even when there is holiness, somehow the darkness, all the lies and all the existence of the world and all these things in the world are even here, and they're even stronger. Like somehow they're here to stay. You know, all these things around the world. Okay, all the Yetzer Hara and all these things, and this klipa, all these things that are not holy, they're not just like on the side and weak and they're just there. They're actually stronger. They're like really, really powerful and strong and taking so much space, and they're hard to fight. Okay, it really seems to be much, much stronger than holiness, right? So it's not following what we said about light and dark, and it's not following what we said about truth and lie, but there's something really different over here. So we have a big question here. How come that this darkness and these lies have so much power in front of the truth? And even more so, this truth is Hashem. How can all these lies be so powerful in front of Hashem himself, who's the truth? Like, he's the one that created the world, and all these lies around are so, so powerful. So it's actually Hashem, the fact that Hashem is the strong, power over here, that's why all the lies are powerful, because that's what Hashem did. That's what Hashem wants. Okay, that's what we're seeing. There's something over here that Hashem is doing. So first of all, this klipa, all this not holy stuff in the world, okay, they don't really have a power of their own. They're only powerful because Hashem made them powerful because of the holiness and because that's what Hashem wants. Okay. Secondly, okay, this klipa has power. Okay, and Hashem gave it power to rise and to be so strong against the truth. And why did Hashem do this? Why did Hashem create so much power to all the lies around and so little power to the truth, or whatever? There is a lot of power to the truth, but why is the lies and the klipa and the non-holy stuff, why are they so powerful? So the purpose is not for those things to win or for those things to take over.
No.
The purpose is that our struggle with this unholy stuff, our struggle with the klipa, is going to make the holiness be even stronger. The fact that we're struggling against, when the holiness wins, the holiness is going to be stronger, much stronger than if you wouldn't be struggling. So the holiness, Hashem did this darkness so that the holiness should come out in a more powerful way, in a way that it would not have happened without hiddenness. Like when you reveal after hiddenness, it's much stronger and much more powerful.
Sounds like you're talking politics. It's good. It's good. It's good. But the taller oak trees fall the harder and further. So the lies are big oak trees, but when they realize and they fall, boy, they fall. And then there's a lot of truth coming out. That's the way I see it.
No. So they are there for the truth to come out stronger, okay? And they reveal the fact that there's this constant struggle, like in this world, okay? It's bringing out the relationship we have with Hashem even stronger, okay? If we do have a relationship with Hashem, it's a much stronger relationship than if there would be no struggle, okay? So the power of the lies are there. Like it's just like here to disturb the power, but it's really in the end to bring out the holiness in its full force. Okay. So when we are in facing problems, when we are facing struggles, okay, we shouldn't get all excited about those struggles and say those are so bad. We should realize where they come from. Coming from Hashem, because Hashem wants me to wake up, Hashem wants me to fight it, and Hashem wants me to become better. That's why they're here. Okay, that's why we said that when a person's heart, Jewish heart, is like clogged up and it's like sealed, and there's like this, like a stone, and it's sealed and you can't get through. Okay, don't be scared. Realize that it's just because there's a strong Yetzer Hara, and you're gonna overcome it, and you're gonna get there. And you're gonna come out even stronger. Okay. But what we learned is that the only way to break through this struggle in front of us, this Yetzer Hara is really, it looks like a person's ego, a person's existence. Like, I exist, my body exists, my clothing exists, my makeup, my this, my that, all that exists so strong. We need to break through the person. Okay. Hit this klipa very strongly, and then it's gonna go away. But you need to hit it very strongly, because the problem is, what's blocking the person is the ego, is the yeshut, the I exist. Okay, that's what's stopping the person from letting Hashem's light in, etc. Okay, so we're gonna soon look in the Tanya, and we're gonna see the Alter Rebbe explains very clearly and in length that on one hand, this klipa is there with power in order to disturb, okay, but it's not a real power. It's just a power that Hashem gave it in order to bring up the holiness. Okay, this klipa is strong only because Hashem gave it strength and the end goal is that the holiness should come out very strongly. Okay, and he explains that the purpose of a crushing, of a breakthrough, is not to weaken down this klipa, this sitra acha, but it's in order for the person to bring out his relationship with Hashem and his belief in Hashem's unity. Okay, to really feel that Hashem is everything, that Hashem, the goal is for us to realize even more who is Hashem and how much we need Hashem and how much Hashem is everything. And the fact that the sitra acha is compared, this whole klipa is compared to darkness, we're saying it really doesn't have any substance. The darkness, remember I told you it's empty. It's because there's no light. When there's nothing, it's dark. So the same thing, sitra acha is nothing. It doesn't have an existence of its own. It's not something, it's not a substance. It just has a power because Hashem gave it power for us to bring out the holiness. We'll see it soon. You'll see how he explains it again and again and again. Okay, so, and actually the source of this sitra acha, the source of this klipa, of this otherness, is the holiness, because the purpose is to bring out the holiness. Okay, so the fact that this sitra acha has power to disturb the holiness is because Hashem gave it temporary strength to be powerful for us to overcome it. And when we overcome it, and when we break it, when we break the klipa, and when we win this battle, we're going to see the truth come out very strongly. So let me show this to you in the words of the Tanya. Now they understood. It's not very short, but hopefully you'll follow with me very well. Okay, in this way, he will help his divine soul, enlightening its eyes to perceive the truth of the unity of the infinite light Ein Sof. As though with physical sight and not merely through the lesser perception of hearing and understanding, for as explained elsewhere, this is the core of the whole divine service. The reason that humbling the spirit of the sitra acha is effective in crushing it is that in truth there is no substance whatsoever in the sitra acha. That is why it is compared to darkness, which has no substance whatsoever, and is automatically banished by the presence of light. Similarly with the sitra acha, indeed, it possesses abundant vitality with which to animate all the impure animals and the souls of the nations of the world, and also the animal soul of the Jew, as has been explained. So this sitra acha, this otherness, has a lot of power. Yet this vitality is not its own. It's not its own existence. It's not its own strength, God forbid, but stems from the realm of holiness. For the realm of holiness is the source of all life, including even the life force of the sitra acha, as has been explained above. Therefore, it is completely nullified in the presence of holiness, as darkness is nullified in the presence of physical light. Its power lies only in the fact that in regard to the holiness of man's divine soul, God has given the Sitra Achra permission and ability to raise itself against it. Hashem gave him the power in order that man should be roused to overpower it and to humble it by means of the humility and submission of his spirit, and by being abhorrent and despised in his own eyes. For through this he humbles the Sitra Achra and abhors it. Okay, a little bit more. The arousal of men below to crush the Sitra Achra causes an arousal above to fulfill what is written. From there I will bring you down, says God, to the Sitra Achra, which seeks to rise against godliness and to obscure it. This means that he deprives it of its dominion and power and withdraws from it the strength and authority which has been given it to rise up against the light of the holiness of the divine soul. Thereupon, it automatically becomes nullified and banished, just as darkness is nullified before physical light. So all you have to understand so far is that the Sitra Achra doesn't have substance, like everything that's not holy doesn't have substance. It's powerful, but it's not real. It's there because Hashem gave it strength for us to overcome it, to bring out holiness. Okay, that's in short. Here's a story of how breaking through really brings the better of it. There's this student that was coming, like a young boy that came to the city of Lubavitch, and he wanted to go to the yeshiva of Lubavitch. But when they saw what type of boy he is, there were mixed opinions about whether to take him in the yeshiva or not, to accept him in the yeshiva. On one hand, this boy was very, very into physical stuff and very into like all the enjoyments of the world. Okay. And everybody was scared that he might influence the other boys in the yeshiva. On the other hand, there was a very powerful neshama inside of this boy, and there was a potential. But and he really wanted to come to this yeshiva for some reason, because something about him really wanted it. But on the outside, he had a lot of desires of the physical world. So what did at the time, it was the fifth Chabad Rabbi, the Rabbi Rashab, and he said to his son, who was the sixth Chabad Rabbi, the Rayat, here's my advice. I think you should take him in, but you need to make him work really hard, like break through him. Don't let him get away easy. Make him work really, really hard, and that will get the best. Like that will hopefully, break through that block of wood, that you couldn't get to burn. You need to break through him. So they gave him a lot of work. They told him when they were baking the matzahs, they gave him the hardest job of baking in the bakery. They told him that even if he had 1 minute of free time, he had to learn these courses by heart. He had to work many, many hours, and when he was tired, he still had to. They gave him more stuff to learn by heart. And so he was also physically exhausted, also spiritually exhausted, and gave it his all, and that brought him the best of him. And it says that when there was the Pesach Seder, they were all there, like the Rashab and the Rayats, like whatever, both rabbis were there, and he saw this boy, and the Rashab said to his son, now you see an amazing man. They brought out the best of him.
No, also it's kind of taking a chance. It could build up resentment.
Yeah, no, it could build up. So you're saying it could build up resentment, but based on what we're learning here is that there is a neshama.
Yeah.
And this boy had a lot of ego covering it up. So you need to break through his ego, and that brings out the neshama. A place where you're worried is if the person is not ready to receive it. But the boy, there was a part of him that wanted to be in this yeshiva. Okay, so you have to know what you're working with, of course. But generally speaking, if a person wants to connect to Hashem, but somehow there's this blockage because of this person's personality of I exist and I'm a big thing, then you have to do a breakthrough. The way to work it, so we're going to learn it now. The way to do it is not by convincing and not by doing it softly. Sometimes that's what you need. So the Alter Rebbe brings a perfect example from the Torah to illustrate all this, to illustrate how breaking through, like crushing a person, is a way. Sometimes logic is not going to. So
yeah, but what they did really is they kept him busy with positive things.
Yeah.
He had no time
To
and no mind
That's
to
what she
think
yeah,
about
but they also
the
made him,
negative,
it's
but
not
they-
just time. It's not just time. They exhausted him also. Like they,
which,
okay, which was maybe a good thing in this case.
and then
Okay.
he realized that's not such a bad thing, and then he thought,
But I think
But in today's world, if you keep the kids busy, like you invested, then they have less time for.
That's true.
different
No,
things.
100%. It's definitely good to keep the
So
kids busy
that's
with
what
good
it
things. No, but there's more. There's also like making it work, make more effort. Like it's not like you're tired now, take a break. There's no break. Okay, like
There's
in
no-
today's world, you would say, okay, he needs a break. He can, like you
No,
give.
no.
Anyway, let's hear the story of the spies. It's like a perfect illustration to understand this whole concept. Okay,
Okay.
so it's you'll see. It's like it's really going to show us how like not having faith in Hashem or not doing
Oh.
what's right, you're going to get a breakthrough. So here's what happened. Moshe Rabbeinu finds the best people. He finds 12 best of the best people that believe in Hashem. Okay. Like it's like the 12 Nasim, okay, the 12 best people, not just best, but also the smartest, like the Va'ad Mumchim. Like they were like experts, okay? Va'adat Mumchim. They were experts, okay? And he sends them to Israel to spy the land and figure out how we're going to enter it, okay? And they were there for 40 years. And they were there in a very systematic, what they were doing is in a very systematic and logical way. They were figuring out the situation, and they looked at the whole situation in a very objective way. And after they looked at the whole place, they came to a scientific conclusion, okay, that based on our physical strength, okay, we're not going to be able to. Even if and they said that Hashem cannot even help us. This place is too mighty. The people there are too strong. The place is not for us. And they came back with like a very exact report, and they said, "This is the result. Like the report is telling us, like there is no way you can win. You can conquer this place. It's like this place is impossible to conquer." And now. Imagine they're coming with this like scientific detailed report and they're coming back and they're describing all this to all the Jews, and all the Jews are listening to this. Everybody's convinced we're not going to Israel, like forget it. Okay, how are you going to convince now the Jewish people to go to Israel? So ideally you would say maybe now you have to convince them to believe again in Hashem. Like now they think that physically this is impossible. Hashem is not going to help them. That's what those amazing spies told them. So let's try and convince the Jews now. Let's try and show them that Hashem is capable of doing big miracles. Let's give them facts and try and like convince them on a physical level that maybe whatever the facts that the spies said, you have to basically convince them and say those facts are not true. You should be able to whatever, try and basically go through the brain and try and convince them and explain them how they will enter the land. Problem is this is going to be really, really hard. Like I'm saying,
The miracle.
what? So you're going to show them miracles, but you have to convince them out of everything the spies came back. It's gonna be a big job to convince them out. Okay. Actually, it did happen that people convinced them through miracles. The story with Korach, okay, Korach was a rebel against Moshe Rabbeinu, okay. Everybody didn't, all the Jews didn't believe that Aaron was appointed. He convinced everybody that Aaron was not appointed by God to be the Kohen Gadol, and that and how did Moshe Rabbeinu convince everybody back into reality, into the truth? By having this big miracle of like that Korach and his 250 people were swallowed by the earth. When all the Jews saw this miracle, they believed back into Moshe. So there was a miracle that showed them, forget about Korach, his pure lies, come back to here. Okay. The problem is now Moshe Rabbeinu here he's going to be doing something completely different. He didn't go to the Jews and start convincing them. Listen, he didn't try and convince them logically or through miracles that the spies made up, like, what they said is not good. Okay, he didn't go through a convincing process. What did he do? He went through a breakthrough. He decided to break them. Okay, and we'll see soon why. Okay, he said Hashem is so angry at you, at all of you, the Jews. Hashem is going to punish you. Okay, you're going to be longer in the desert. Okay, and we see that instead of convincing them, Moshe decided to break them, to literally say, you guys did a big mistake. Something's really wrong over here with all the Jews. So according to logic, okay, if you would break them like that and say, you guys made a big mistake, it could have got them into a big depression and say, whoa, my goodness, now forget it. We're going to go back to Egypt. We don't need any of this. Like, it could have broke them. But actually, very interesting, this actually worked. The Jews really felt bad instantly, and they made a 180-degree turn. They felt so bad that they right away realized that they made a mistake, and they felt bad, and they're like, no, we're believing back in Hashem. Like in a second, as soon as they were like broken and they were told, you guys made a big mistake, Hashem will punish you, they realized that they made a mistake, and they said, we want to listen to Hashem, and we want to believe in Hashem, and we're going to do whatever Hashem wants. So now let's try to understand, how did this change happened in the Jews? He didn't use any logic, okay, and he didn't use any miracles to convince them, okay. He didn't try and convince them. No logic, no miracles, nothing.
Because
so
they really did want to go to him.
So he did a breakthrough. So it's very interesting. Chabad, according to Hasidut Chabad, everything is chokhmah bina dat. Everything is, you need to understand, and then you're going to feel it. Like, you need to fully understand, fully get into the logic, and really try to understand. And over here, it just comes and does a breakthrough without understanding, without explaining, without nothing. Just say, you guys are making a big mistake. Hashem is very angry at you. You're going to be punished, and it worked. So based on what we see here, based on everything we learned, hopefully you'll understand, is that those spies, okay, and the Jews believing in the spies, is not coming because they had a lack of faith, and it's not coming because they had issues with their with their brains. There was a much bigger problem. So how do I know it's not because of their faith? Because it says all the Jews are believers, son of believers. Okay, they went as the best people of the Jewish people. They knew they're going to, they knew they're going because they want to do what Hashem wants.
They did see the giants. They did see those huge.
Yeah, but so what was their mistake? Do you know?
Their mistake was they had the lashon hara.
No.
No, their mistake was that they lost. They got scared.
No. Hey, give me a minute. No, because it's a perfect example of what we're learning in this chapter of Tanya. Give me a minute. Okay, we know that they were believers. Okay, these believers is not, when Jews believe, that they're not going to have doubts whether to enter the land. That was not the issue, and it's not the problem. Was also not the fact that their logic didn't work with it, because if they believe in Hashem, they know Hashem can do everything. There was some other problem. Problem is that they had too much ego. Okay, they decided, they didn't come and say, this is how we're going to conquer. Like, they were sent to just tell how they're going to conquer, but they came back and said, one second, they forgot what their job was. Their job wasn't to go and figure out how they're going to conquer. They thought that they're not going to decide for Hashem what everybody should do. They are not becoming the decision makers of the whole Jewish people. That's what they felt. They went to Israel and they decided that now it's all in our hands. We're going to decide what we're going to do. Forget about Hashem. It's all about us. We're going to come back. We can decide that we don't want to go in there. We're going to tell all the Jews that this is not for us. Like, they took on too much ego and too much boasting, whatever, too much ga'ava, like whatever. They really felt like it was all in their hands. And that was their problem. Okay. The problem is not a problem of emunah. The problem is this boasting that we're talking about. That's this blockage of the neshama. Okay, it's when a person thinks, I exist, I'm a big somebody. Okay, I'm going to decide over here. And when they came back, they said, we're going to decide whether the Jews are going to conquer the land. They were going to figure out how, but they came back saying we should not. Like, they came back making a decision. They came back with too much ego. Okay, and with this strong ego, they said, no, we're not going to conquer. Okay, so when you're facing such ego, when you're facing that, the only way to break through is not with logic, not with miracles. Moshe Rabbeinu knew. He's like, no, I'm going to break them. I'm going to tell them that they're making a big mistake. I'm going to tell them Hashem is angry at you. I'm going to tell them Hashem is going to want to punish you. And that broke them. And then they regretted it. And then they realized that they're making a mistake. You understand?
Why is their ego when they say what they saw?
They didn't say what they saw. They said we should not. They came back saying we should not go in. They made a decision.
They were giants.
No, they said because they are giants, we think we should not go. They should have said we saw giants. We need to rely on miracles. They could have said that. You know, we need Hashem with us. We're going to pray. You know, you prepare for war with different things. You know, with the army, with the prayer, with the presence. You know, like there's a way of getting ready for war. They said no, we're not going in. This is too strong for us. This is not for us. Like they put Hashem aside completely. They almost like forgot about they have deep inside, they have faith, but they forgot about it. It got erased because of their ego. Their ego came in front of everything. That's what happened to us. When that happens to us, we need a breakthrough. That's what we're talking about in this chapter. This is a perfect example to illustrate this. The Alter Rebbe brings here. Okay, and he says when you're facing such ego, Moshe Rabbeinu knew he needs to say Hashem is so mad at you. Hashem is going to punish you with a very big punishment. Okay, and when they really felt that crush, that breakthrough, then they woke up. The next morning, all of a sudden, all their faith came back, okay, and they realized what mistake they made, and they right away wanted to express themselves and go in and whatever. They right away believed in Hashem, okay. So let me show you this in the Tanya, how the Alter Rebbe brings the example of the spies and explains that it's not about their faith that went wrong. It's not about their logic that went wrong. It's literally their ego that came in front of everything. And for that, the only thing that can work is a real breakthrough. Indeed, we find this explicitly stated in the Torah in connection with the spies sent by Moshe to scout out the Holy Land. At the outset, they declared, for the enemy is stronger than we. And interpreting the word mimenu, the sages say, read not than we, but than he. Like they didn't say they're stronger than us, but they said they're stronger than him, than Hashem. Meaning that they had no faith in Hashem's ability to lead them into the Holy Land. But afterwards, they reversed themselves and announced, we will readily go up to conquer the land. Whence did their faith in God's ability return to them? Our teacher Moshe, peace upon him, had not shown them in the interim any sign or miracle concerning this, which would restore their faith. He had merely told them that God was angry with them and had sworn not to allow them to enter the land. What value did this divine anger and oath have to them if in any case they did not believe in God's ability to subdue the 31 kings who reigned in the land at that time, for which reason they had no desire whatsoever to enter the land? Surely, then the explanation is as follows. Israelites themselves are believers. So he's basically explaining, and then he'll tell you the answer. Surely, then the explanation is as follows. Israelites themselves are believers, the descendants of believers. Even while they stated the enemy is stronger than he, their divine soul still believed in God. They professed a lack of faith in his ability only because the sitra acha closed in their body in the person of their animal soul had risen against the light of the holiness of the divine soul with its characteristic, what's the characteristic? Imponent arrogance and haughtiness without sense or reason. Gasut rucha, gavhuta, chutzpah, blitam vedat. I think it's much more powerful in Hebrew for those of you that understand.
Yeah.
Therefore, as soon as God became angry with them and thundered angrily, how long shall I bear with this evil congregation? Your carcasses shall fall into this wilderness. I, God, have spoken. I will surely do it unto all evil congregation. Their heart was humbled and broken within them when they heard these stern words, as it is written, and the people mourned greatly. Consequently, the Sitra Achad toppled from its dominion, from its haughtiness and arrogance. But the Israelites themselves, as far as their divine soul was concerned, had believed in God all along. Okay, see what's going on? The belief is always there, but somehow the ego, this arrogance, came in front of it and blocked it. And the only way to break through is not by showing miracles or by explaining logically, but it's by saying you're doing something really wrong. Hashem is very mad at you, and Hashem is going to punish you very harshly. And that did the job. So this is an example where you see, like, it's illustrating exactly everything we saw in this chapter, like how a breakthrough really is sometimes the only way to, like, break down a person's ego.
But
Okay.
who allowed you the breakthrough? Just
Who allows it?
yeah. I mean, who do you know? How do you know that the person who the breakthrough has a good intention?
No, so we're talking about a breakthrough for the purpose of your neshama to light up. When a person has so much ego and he's so good in his world, sometimes he needs to do a breakthrough. And we learned a few ways to do it in the beginning of the chapter. By doing the cheshbon nefesh. Okay, don't worry.
About Sterner sitting and crying for 2 hours on Shabbat. She knew she's crying for nothing.
No, but
Yeah,
I'm
she
saying
was
it's a work that we have to do on ourselves. Okay, that we said that there's a few ways of breakthrough. It can be a punishment from Hashem, but sometimes we need to do it ourselves. And
Yeah, but
literally,
like if somebody else does something very, very wrong, that's against anything for.
okay, you can't do it to someone else. It's very hard. Most people won't listen to
That's
you.
what I'm saying, yeah.
Okay, no, we're talking about
Then
ourselves.
it's like against any beliefs, anything, any law.
Yeah, they have to go through it themselves. Okay, so let's talk about ourselves. It's going to be very hard to do it or whatever to do it otherwise. Now, there's an amazing story in the Talmud about Rabbi Elazar, the son of the Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He was once walking, and he saw a very ugly person, and he said to him, "How ugly are you? Probably everybody in your city is as ugly as you." Like, he really no, but listen till the end. It's a very sharp story. And this ugly person said, "Go and tell this to my creator, Hashem, like, tell him how ugly he made me." And the Gemara says that Rabbi Elazar understood that he made a mistake, and he really asked for forgiveness. And after a lot of sorries, like a lot of sorries, at the end he got forgiveness. But the person told him that you should not do this all the time. Like, as long as you're not, I'll forgive you as long as you don't continue to do this. But then there was something deeper over here. The Rebbe takes this story and explains deeper. He says, one second. This person, there was the ugliness on the outside, but somehow this Rabbi Elazar, okay, he's the son of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he saw something ugly on the inside. And what did he try to do? He tried to break him to wake up, to wake up to his neshama. And he did. But the person was very hurt. That's why he told him, go to my creator. Like, I'm not, like, it's not my fault that I'm like that. But which means that whatever the words of Rabbi Elazar really went through him also on a spiritual level. Okay. And he really realized, like, there's something about, he basically, when he said, "Look at my creator," he basically remembered about Hashem. This person had a lot of ugliness, like he had a lot of ego, and he needed a breakthrough, and the breakthrough did the job because he did remember about Hashem. But what was the problem over here? Is that not always, as you said, not always is that the way to deal with a person. Sometimes it's too sharp, Sometimes you need to do it in a kinder way, not just doing a breakthrough. And that's why it took him a very long time to get forgiven. And the person told him, "I'll forgive you as long as you don't do it all the time." What did it mean? He said, "I'll forgive you as long as don't do this breaking to everybody all the time. Like, sometimes you need to do it in a softer way. Sometimes you can do the breakthrough in a sharp way, but it's not always in the sharp way." So Rabbi Elazar learned his lesson from this, that he shouldn't, you have to think. Sometimes you break a person, but I don't think our job is to break other people. Going back to what you were saying, our job is really to look at more at ourselves. But I'm saying this is a story to see that sometimes people do need a breakthrough, and it does do the job. But at the same time, we have to also do things in a loving way to be that it should get received better. Okay.
So, what about the rabbi of the community? Rabbi is a Torah.
So if
right?
you mean if he puts the person into place?
Yeah.
So usually a proper rabbi will feel and will know. Okay, based on all this, we see the rabbis knew when it was right to put a person that came to them into place, like we said in a few stories. But so a rabbi is somebody that can help the person to a breakthrough. if he does it to the right person in the right time and he's the right, if everything is done right. But sometimes we learn that sometimes it can be a rabbi, whatever, or a very good friend, because sometimes when they say something, it really goes deep inside of us. But sometimes we can do it ourselves. If we do the cheshbon nefesh, if we do this like retrospection, okay, either every night or around Rosh Hashanah properly, like really properly, then we're really seeing who we really are, and then we do this breakthrough ourselves. So this chapter talks about the whole idea of doing it, because the best comes out of it. Like having a breakdown. Basically, there's something positive about having a breakdown. That's what we're learning here.
Okay, honey, I
Yeah.
learned it. Okay, I'm going back to grade 6.
Yes.
They thought they're coming to the country of Israel and they have to work the land and do everything by themselves.
The spies,
The Jewish people realized the good times of the desert, that God did everything for them is done. So they come to Israel and they realize all that stuff, and then they thought that they cannot do it. And then they came back. That's why. So now it's a different way of looking.
No, but I don't think the spies were talking about working the land.
Not about working the land. They realized everything. So to fight the giants was their job. Everything it is an ego. But I never really thought that when
it's a famous sikha of the Rebbe. Like I'm saying, to me, this is not new stuff. Like the Rebbe always talks about this.
But
what was the actual mistake versus what was, what you think?
The actual mistake was that they didn't have God in mind.
And that they became the decision maker. That they became the decision
we
maker.
have to find those people. They giants.
When you're a spy, you just report what you see and you help figure out how to conquer. They became like the owners of the whole land, and they decide, what should we do? And they put Hashem aside. That was their mistake. Anyways, after we understood this story of these spies, okay, and how we need to break through this Sitra Achra, now we can understand, okay, more about how to deal with doubts in Hashem, okay, because we see that really deep inside, they did believe, right? So we know that Jews are Ma'aminim b'nei Ma'aminim. We're Jews. We're believers, son of believers. Okay, we have natural belief in Hashem. Okay, we see it throughout whole history. That emunah really kept the Jews through a lot of challenges. Okay, at the same time, any Jew can have sometimes doubts. Does Hashem really exist? Is the Torah really like what is more powerful? Like what is more real, Torah or science? Sometimes we like there's contradictions, and we're doubting which one is real. Okay. So really, you can think that behind all these doubts, there's a problem of logic. Okay, that really there's the person's trying to understand, so he's questioning and he's trying to make it all logical, because a person is a logical person. Okay, so we're trying to understand everything logically, and that's why we're asking questions. And in fact, Judaism answers questions. We have no problem hearing questions and answering questions and finding answers in all the books. It's fine. Okay, but not always does a person need answers. Not always those questions require answers. Many times, the doubts don't come from like trying to understand. Many times the doubts come from this ego, this arrogance, this person that coming in front, okay, that's making the person, that's shaking up the person and making him doubt who Hashem is. So how is this ego connected with this doubts that the person has? So there could be different situations. Sometimes the person is so into trying to understand things logically, okay, so he's trying to understand how is Hashem actually existing. Like the person is like, but then the problem is that our logic is smaller than Hashem. Our logic is a creation of Hashem. Like Hashem created everything, including our logic. Our logic is just like a piece of Hashem's creation. So it's going to be very hard with our logic to understand something that's higher than logic, something that's much higher. And the problem is that a person is so trying to understand it and thinks my logic is the most important. My brain needs to understand it. Prove it to me. You have to prove it to me according to science. Like we're limited, and sometimes we don't realize how limited we are, and we're just trying to understand. So that can cause a person to have doubts, because in the end of the game, our brain tries that. Also, a lot of times people use all this questioning to cover up their desires. So a person tries, like wants to do something, that's not allowed, and is going to try and it's something that Hashem doesn't want, but psychologically, okay, he's going to try and say, I really want that. So maybe what Hashem wants is not really real. And he's going to try to justify his actions by saying Hashem is not so big, Hashem is not seeing me, or whatever it is, that this is not such a big deal, this is not really Torah, like that's just fine, and he's trying to fix his problems. Okay, actually, very interesting. Amalek, the one that's like making us cold to Torah, is the same numerical value than Safek, a doubt. Okay, the whole goal of Amalek, okay, the enemy, is to make us cold, to take away the warmth of and the excitement for holiness. Okay, you're not talking about doubts that we have like on a logical level, but it's doubts that come from, like, all these doubts that come from the ego. Okay, doubts that come from our whatever, from everything that we're trying to be an existence of our own. Okay, so when you talk about Amalek, don't try and deal with him logically. You have to just erase him. Amalek is someone that will say, go away, like you don't belong here. So if we have doubts that usually come because of our ego, just kick them away and change topics in your mind, like literally, like it's not, you're not going to deal with it with logic. There's a very good story to illustrate this. There's a very student that started getting influenced with very bad stuff and was like, going downwards. And he saw his Rosh Yeshiva, whatever, a big rabbi, and he told him, I have a lot of doubts and questions in my faith. And the rabbi answered to him, I give answers to questions, but I can't give answers to excuses. Because a lot of times it's not real questions, it's excuses that cover up when you're trying to do bad things and you're trying to have you question Hashem to justify your bad actions. That's the problem. Okay, so it could come from different places. Okay, so if we have doubts, okay, because it's like that, okay, don't deal with the doubts with trying to explain it. And this, it's very, like, the idea is to literally change focus, change our mind, realize where it's coming from, realize it's coming from our ego, from the Yetzer Hara, and just like change focus, like say go away and continue, because we are deep inside, we are believers. So let me show this to you in the Tanya. That's how we're finishing chapter 29. Every person in whose mind there occurs doubts concerning faith in God can deduce from this episode of the spies that his doubts are nothing but the empty words of the Sitra Achra, which raises itself against his divine soul. But Israeli, like Jews themselves, are believers. Furthermore, the Sitra Achra itself entertains no doubts of all concerning faith. As explained in chapter 22, the Klippa in its spiritual state does not deny God's sovereignty. It has merely been granted permission to confuse man with false and deceitful words in order that he may be more richly rewarded for mastering it. In this, it is similar to the harlot who attempts to seduce the king's son through falsehood and deceit with his king's approval, as the parable narrated in the Holy Zohar. Okay, we're not going into it. Anyways, so we're finishing chapter 29, which was actually 3 classes. Okay, we talked about situations where a person needs to have a crushing, a breakthrough. Okay, because the neshama is not lighting up his body. Okay, so we learned that there has to be cheshbon nefesh, introspection. Okay, that a person has to do. Okay, it's about self-perception, how we view ourselves. We need to view ourselves as low and realize who we really are. Okay, that we're actually worse than an animal. Remember that one? Realize the bad, like the things that we do that are not allowed. Realize the things that we're allowed, but we're not doing it for Hashem's sake. And we also saw that the dreams can tell us about who we really are, like about the unconscious part of us. So all that is literally looking at ourselves and doing this cheshbon nefesh to do a breakthrough. Okay, and today we learned that a breakthrough brings, like, it's bringing a lot of positive outcome. Okay, it helps the person it enables the person's neshama to light up. Like it's the overcoming those struggles, overcoming that breakthrough. In the end, the light that comes after is like much stronger. Okay, and we learned that the klipa doesn't have any substance. It's not really existent. It's only there for us to face and to struggle against the holiness, but then the holiness is going to come out much stronger. So the breakthrough is so important for the holiness to light up stronger. Now, we ended up, this chapter finished off with the concept of like having doubts in our faith, okay? And so what the main approach is to literally change our mind's focus when this come up. But it could seem, if I tell you change your mind, it seems like I'm telling you run away from it, like you're not really dealing with it, right? So like, why shouldn't you go in all your doubts, ask questions, deal with it? Why go away? Like, why not go into a book and try to understand and investigate and figure out who Hashem is? Especially that Chabad is all about Chosma Binadat, about trying to understand. Why tell you run away from it? But it's because we need to understand that really we all have a very deep emunah inside of us, okay? Very, very simple and deep emunah inside of us. And that's the normal, okay? The normal is that, you know, we're there and we have emunah. The problem is, as soon as there's a doubt, that's not the normal. As soon as there's a doubt, that's not the way it should be. I'll tell you a story. There was a person that said to the Rebbe, I have doubts in my faith, and I'm not sure Hashem is the one that created the world, and I need you to give me a proof for that. And the Rebbe answered to him, when you see a building with 2 floors, do you understand that someone built this, or you need a proof for that? That's what the Rebbe answered to him. So when you try to figure out what did the Rebbe try to do, did the Rebbe actually answer his question, or the Rebbe told him you shouldn't have any doubts altogether? Like if he's going to start, the Rebbe is telling him this is not something you can ask questions about. Like that, he's not going into the details and trying to explain to him, let me try and prove you that Hashem did create the world. You don't go into all these details. There's no point. This emunah is something that's basic and deep inside of us. So the Rebbe in this person, he actually just woke up his emunah. Just said, 1 second, don't ask any questions. It's not normal that you should think that way. When you see a building, you don't think that there's someone building, right? You see a world, you don't think, okay? And so when you have doubts in emunah, it's not about like looking into all the details. Why do I have those doubts and what's going on, etc. So of course, sometimes we're not saying not to learn about emunah. There are books, Sha'arei Emunah, whatever. There are books about learning how to deepen our faith, etc. But those are only helping when there's a sickness, like when there's really a problem, like the person is completely depressed, then he needs to, figure out his emunah. But a regular person, we are born and we educate ourselves with simple emunah, and we should base ourselves on that base, like that simple faith that we have. We all have that faith. So just go back to that point, instead of like trying to ask questions and trying to learn it, etc. Like we teach little kids about this like basic emunah, like we are believers, just like that. And that's really the strongest thing that we can have. And that's why when there are doubts, don't answer little questions and don't like try, but just change your mind and realize we are believers. Okay. Okay, so in this chapter we spoke about having a retrospection between ourselves and ourselves. Next chapter is going to deal with having this retrospection with our friends, with people around us. Okay, how can we face our low selves in front of others? Like whatever, it's going to be not just between ourselves and ourselves, but how do we face who we are in front of others? That's whatever, it's going to go deeper. It's also a very interesting chapter, and yeah.